All right, everyone, welcome back to class. And today we will continue from where we stopped last week. Now, in the last class, we were able to install Python and VS Code. I introduced you to Python syntax as well as such as indentation, the Python single line comment and multi-line comment. We talked about Python input and Python output, yes, using the print function. We also talked about variable, where we talk about variable as a container for storing data values. I gave you an example. I also showed you the rules that guide variable naming convention. We talked about Python data types, such as the Boolean, integer, float, string, as well as arrays for storing data values. Then we talked about arithmetic operators, where we have the addition, the subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, modulo, and exponential. So because of these operators, you are able to carry out mathematical operations. And lastly, we discussed about the order of operation. The way you have Bodmas in mathematics, we also have PEMDAS in Python, where we have parentheses, exponential, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So last week I gave you homework in our last class, rather not last week. In our last class, I gave you homework, and some of you have been submitted to the mail. Some people are already getting their reviews. They are already getting their scores, which is very, very impressive. So today, because of those people who said they cannot, probably they don't know how to operate Python on their phone, I have decided to use phone today. All right. So that you see that it is not a barrier. So if you have Pydrod on your phone, you open your Pydrod app. Give me a minute. Okay, you open your Pydrod app. I'm just going to do this for maybe the next few minutes so that you see how it works. Because of the hacks, I didn't pay for a premium account, and the hacks is going to be disturbing us, and I don't want something of such. You see, these are the assignments that some of you sent. And I'm also reviewing the assignment on my phone, not even on the laptop. You can see how easy it is. So because today we have another topic we'll be discussing, which is called string operators. Now, last week we talked about arithmetic operators. Today we are going to talk about string operators. And I'm going to create a file. So I will click this file here and click new. Now I have a new code editor. Now, again, you are seeing my cursor. So I want to rename this file, this new file. I want to rename it as string operator. So I will go into my internal storage, look for Python tutorial. Do I have that? Okay, I have Python. Look at the new file here. So I will call it string underscore operators. So the extension .py is already there by itself. So I will save that. Now I have a code editor titled string operators. Now, when I say string operators, these are operations that you can perform on string data types. Remember, we have different data types. We have the numeric data type, which has integer and float. So we did the operators for numeric data types last class. So now we are going to be talking about string operators. These are operators that allows you to perform any operations on text. Okay. Now, string data types are generally their text, and they always comes in quotation mark. Okay. A good example of what I'm saying is when we have print John. The moment you have any word in quotation, it is simply a string data type. Now, if I print 50 and I put it inside a quotation, it is simply a string data type. All right. So now understand that you cannot perform mathematical operations. Most of the mathematical operation we did on integer or float last week, you cannot perform them on strings. Now, even if that strings looks like number, like my line 2 here, this 50, you cannot perform division on it. You cannot perform mathematical operation on them. All right. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I say I want to print 50 like this divided by string 10, what is going to be the output? Now let's run this code and let's see what we have. Look at that. We come up with an error. It's telling us that type error, unsupported operands types for string and integer. So you cannot perform mathematical operation on string. Okay. So, but there are two different string operators. All right. There are two operators that you can use to work with Python. And even though they look like arithmetic operators, the rules are a little bit different, and it is important for you to understand how this works. Okay, so let me create a multi-line comment. How does this work? Just a minute. So there are okay. Is this going to work? I think I need one more. And here, sorry, because I'm not using my laptop, so it's kind of a little bit. All right, okay. So this is what I want. So there are two string operators that we have, and they look like mathematical operators, but they are not the same. Now, these two string operators, they are the plus and the asterisk, like this. So it is, we don't refer to them as addition, and we don't refer to them as multiplication, addition and multiplication. So the first one that we have here is what we call the concatenation. Okay, the concatenation. So this one is called concatenation, and it is used to join two or more strings together. All right. So these are plus that you are saying. We don't call them plus or addition in string. We call them concatenation. Okay. While the second one, which is asterisk, is not called multiplication. It is simply called repetition. And when you want to perform repetitions or multiplication on strings, and it's only work, and it's only works when you use them with integer. All right. So we have this, and it's called repetition. Used to perform repetition. Now we are going to try how this works, and so that you see what concatenation. Okay, so let me simply print hello, and then sorry, plus world. Okay, you see what I have here? Print hello plus world. By the time I run this code, you see, oh, what are we having? It's saying, okay, I think I have an error in line 2 where I used here. I have an error here. Let me remove that. I forgot. So, okay, let me run this code and you see what I'm talking about. Look at that. We have hello world, and it has been concatenated together, which means it has been added together. Look at what I was talking about their hearts. So because of this, we'll not be using this for long. Now, the next one that we have is called repetition. Okay, repetition, where we are going to use that multiplication sign. So if I type print hello, then the multiply by 3, and I run this code, what do we have? Okay, line 13, hello, multiply by 3 is not working. What is going on? Oh, I think I have double quotation. I mean, double parenthesis, sorry. So now this should work. All right, look at that. It has repeated that word 3 different times. All right, it has repeated that word 3 different times. So this little practice that I just did is for those who are complaining about using phone. You see how I did it, and seamlessly I have been able to work on my phone. So I'm going to copy all of this code now, and I'm going to be using, I will start using my my VS Code again. All right, so in VS Code, I click this new file to create a new Python file called string operators.py. All right, then what I copy, I can paste it here. You see, so everything works the way I want it to work. Now, if I run this code, what I was seeing on my yes, good. So we can continue from where we stopped. Okay, we can continue from where stops. So what we just did is we have been able to use the two string operators that we have, which is the repetition and the concatenation. Now, you need to understand that there are ways you can work with strings. Okay, there are ways you can work with strings. Like I told you, there are various methods, various functions you can use to work with your string. And the first and the most easiest one that we're going to do is to check the length of a string. Check the length of a string. So we have this. Let me create a new string called username. So I have username equals to Gideon. So if I have a username called, I have a user called Gideon. Now, if I want to know the total number of character in Gideon, you can simply count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we see that we have 6 characters. Okay, but that is not the most efficient way to do that. We have a function for that in Python, and that function is called len function. So we simply print len, then username. Okay, I told you we're not going to be using Gideon again because we have created a variable. So len username. When I run this code, we should see 6. Look at my terminal. We now have 6. So that is how to check the total number of character in a string. How to check the total number of character in a string using len function. Now, the next thing we need to also check. Now, let me create a comment so that we understand what we are doing. Checking the length. String. All right. Now, the next thing we can do, the next function we can also use on our string is to change that string to either uppercase or lowercase. All right, you can change it to uppercase or lowercase. Look at Gideon now. Gideon is capitalized. The first letter of Gideon is G. Every other ones are small letter. So letter. We can simply use a function called upper. We also have another one called lower. We also have another one called capitalized. So if you are using VS Code and you type username, the moment you type dots, you can see various functions, various methods that you can use on your string. Now, what we are looking for now is the upper function. Now, you scroll down and look for upper. This is arranged in alphabetical order. Look at that. We have upper here. So, and because it is a function, you have to put parentheses in front of that function. Now, if you print username, we should have it changed to uppercase. Okay, Gideon is not changed. I think I need to wrap this inside print statement. All right, so I will have to print username and upper like this. So when I run this code, it has been changed to capital letter. You see that? So Gideon has been changed to capital letter. That is how to change the case of your string. All right. Now, what if we want to change that to lowercase entirely? It's still the same approach. Print username dot. We now have lower. Now, remember, because it is a function, it is going to have parentheses in front. Now, you run this code, we should have lowercase in Gideon. Now, you might be asking, where do I need this thing? Remember, sometimes when you are being asked to register on a platform, and you realize that the way you enter your name is not the way they gave you back the name. Sometimes you enter lowercase, and by the time they print out your information, it has been printed using capital letter all through, or it has been printed using capitalized in the beginning. I mean, capital letter for the first letter. This is the kind of function that can do that for you in Python. All right. So now what we have been doing since, we have been concatenating, I mean, we have been using function on a single variable. You can use function actually on multiple variable. All right. You can use function on multiple variables. So we have username. So let's change it to surname. I mean, first name. Let's change it to first name. Let's change that to first name. And let's change every other thing here, so that we can also have surname. I think it's Gideon's surname is Peter. All right. So we have the surname as Peter. Now, how do we combine this name together? How do we combine the name together? Gideon, Peter, such that we have the full name. How do we do that? We can simply use the concatenation that I used initially, that addition, to combine two variables. So we can print first name plus surname. We print first name plus surname. When we run this code, you should see Gideon Peter at the end. Look at that. We have Gideon Peter. But this is not how you want it formatted. We are supposed to put space in between Gideon and Peter. How do we do that? We should simply add an empty string. An empty string like this. Empty string, then we add plus here again. An empty string. So for formatting, you can actually put spaces here. Now, when we run this code, you see we now have Gideon Peter written out with space in between. Now, look at this empty string. You see there is a space there. If you remove that space, it is not going to work. So you need to add space in between that double quotation to give us that empty string that we are looking for, that space that we are looking for. So that is how to work with string. All right. So now there are so many functions, so many methods that you can use with your string. And in Python, you will always work with text data. In fact, if you're a data analyst, you also work with text data. Now, to modify your string, okay, to modify your string. Now, let me create a comment and call it string modification. Modifying a string. Now, when I say modifying a string, let's say you want to make changes to your string. You can use the function. You can use a function to make changes to your string. All right. So let's say when I created another username, so I have username 2, and instead of I have star here. Now, yes, just a minute. I have please have to write star. I made a mistake, and because I was rushing, I put F here. How do I actually change this F in Python? How do I change this F? It is simple. You are going to use a function that is called replace to do that. All right. So we are going to say print username, that is username 2 dot replace. print username 2 dot replace. Look at that. We should have replaced. Yes, replace is a function. And because it is a function, because that replace is a function, remember it's going to have parentheses in front. When I had that parentheses, what are we replacing? Okay, we want to replace the F. So you put the F, comma. What are you replacing that F with? We are going to replace it with L star, like this. Now, if I run this code, you should see L star really format, written with the correct name. You can see what we have now. So we have been able to use the replace method here to replace F with this E. Okay. Now, one more thing that we also have is to remove white spaces from a string. You want to remove white spaces from a string. Now, let me show you what a white space means. So let's say we have a test called welcome message. And that welcome message is simply, let's say, hello, welcome to quantified insights. Okay. Now, if I print this, let me print this welcome message. It started from the beginning and we have it to the end. All right. Now, the white spaces are extra spaces at the beginning or at the end of your text. All right. So sometimes there are times that you make mistake and add spaces to the beginning and the end of your string. Now let me add these spaces so that you see 1, 2, 3, 4. I have added 4 spaces at the beginning. Now let me reprint this hello. Let me reprint this message and you see what we have. You see where the hello welcome to quantify instance starts from. It is no longer from the beginning of the line. It has been shifted to the front. Now, if I had maybe 5 or spaces to the end, you might not be able to notice that here. But let me run that code. Look at that. You will not. There's no way for you to know if there are spaces at the end of your string. But in order to remove this white space, these are called white spaces. In order for you to remove these white spaces, you simply use the function called strip. So welcome message dot strip. Now look at those functions there. We have strip. You can look for strip here, or you can simply type it. So look at that. strip strip. So it is going to strip the spaces in the beginning and at the end of your string. Let me print that. You can see we now have hello, welcome to quantified insight. Okay. So also you can also split your string. You can also split your string. But for now, I am not going to really use all the function or all the method out there in this class. Okay. I am not going to use it so that I will see something to give to you as an assignment. Now, one more thing that is very important, one concept that is very important that I need to teach you about string is what we call string formatting. All right. String formatting. I saw some of you used it in your assignment. It shows that you really understand how this works. So, but before I move on, I want to pause for a while and ask if there is any question. Do we have any question, please? You can please drop in the comment and the do you have any question? Please drop a message in the chat box. Any question before I move on to string formatting? All right, Nasiru, thanks for the reaction. So I think I'm safe to move on. Now, remember when I was talking to you about concatenation and repetition, I said you cannot use number and string together. You are going to come up with an error. All right, let me do that so that you see. Equals to 21, and we are going to use this username, the first username, which is Gideon. All right, the first username, which is Gideon. So I want to print my name is Gideon and I'm 21 years old. Can we do that? So print my name so my name is Gideon, and okay, let me say how do I do this? Okay, my name is, so let me say plus username, then comma, I am, so age, years old. Now remember we have username in our chat here, in our message here. Where do we have it? Okay, we have username too. So we have first name, not username. We have first name here. So we have first name. All right, not username. Then we have age. Okay, we have age. Can we actually work with this? Now let me run this code. Let's see what we have. Look at that. It's saying invalid syntax. Invalid syntax. Okay, I think maybe I need to put comma here. All right. That is invalid syntax is not what I want to. It's not the code it's not the error I expected. All right. My name is Gideon and I'm 21 years old. Okay. This actually work. This works, but then I was expecting to get an error, but I didn't get that. So, but this is not the best approach to actually combine variables and strings. This is not the best way to combine variables and string. So that's why we have what we call F string. All right. So we can combine strings and numbers by using what we call F strings. And you should know that that F string was introduced since Python version 3.6. Okay. And now it has become one of the best way to actually format your string. So instead of going through all of these routes, we simply use print. Now, in the beginning, you type F. From the beginning, you type F like this. Then you can now put your quotation and start with my name is. So I want to add Gideon. All right. And that Gideon is first name. So I will simply put it inside a curly bracket and write first name like this. So my name is first name, then, and I am age again, 21 years old. So, and I'm 21 years old. When we run this, you see how beautifully formatted it's going to be. This previous one, in fact, is Gideon is even combined, but let's check this one and let's see how it looks. Look at that. My name is Gideon and I am 21 years old. Sorry, I don't need to, I forgot. So my name is Gideon and I'm 21 years old. So what we are doing here is called string formatting. Now, the first thing you need to add is this F at the beginning of your string before the quotation. Now, when you want to add a variable, each variable is going to be inside a curly bracket. We call it a placeholder. So this is going to be a placeholder for your variable. First name was Gideon at the top, then this age here is 21. You see how impressive this thing looks. Purely formatted. There's no, we don't have any issue. Okay. So now that's a placeholder contains variable, and that placeholder we are talking about is the curly brackets. So it contains variables, it contains operations, you can put functions, and you can also put modifiers in order to modify your values. Okay. Now, some other thing we can actually do to see how this modifier works, this curly bracket called placeholder, how it works is to show you some other things. So let's say we have your height, or let me use price instead of height. So we have price, and that price is maybe we have let's say $100.45. Okay, so we now print, let's say the price of the product is, you now put price here. Okay, this price there. Now let's run this code and let's see what we have. Oh, I need to add f string at the beginning. So you will also make that mistake sometimes, which is normal. It's very easy. It will be very easy for you to debug. Dot point 45. Now, what if there is a way for us to actually change these decimal places? We can use it to modify we can use this modifier here, this placeholder, to modify whatsoever it is we have. So it's simple. You put colon here and you now put dot 2f. All right. So now with this dot 2f, we now have, it is still the same 45. All right. Now, if you had 3, the decimal should be more than should now become 3. You know, the number after the decimal becomes 3. So this is actually rounding your figure. So if you want to actually, if you want just one decimal place, you want it to be in one decimal place, you should put 1. When you run that code, we now have 100.5. Okay, so this is called a modifier, and a modifier is included by adding a colon followed by a legal formatting type. And this is a legal formatting type. We have .1f, .2f, .3f, as the case may be. So if you put .1f, it is going to be a fixed point number with 1 decimal point. If you put .2f, now let me put this price, let me add more than, I have added like 7 decimal number at the end. Now, if I run this code, it is going to be in 2 decimal points. If I change the 2 to 4, it is going to be in 4 decimal places. So that is simply a modifier. All right, so that is what I just want to show you about string formatting. Okay, so all of these methods and functions that we use on our string, you cannot use them on integer. They are not going to work because we call them string operators, all right, or string methods or string functions. So which means they are limited to strings data types alone, not cannot be extended to integer. All right. So the next thing we are going to discuss now is errors and bugs. We are going to be talking about errors, and I'm going to create a new file for error. So error.py. Okay. Now you must have been seeing this error for some time now. So I just say we should quickly use this. We should quickly talk about the error before we move on. So you must have been seeing us come up with an error while we run some certain code. For example, when I print, okay, let me print hello world like this. If I run the code, you will see that we come up with an error. Our code did not run. Okay, so this is an error. And in Python or in any programming language, we call them errors and bugs. Anything you are seeing like this are regarded as errors and bugs. So errors or bugs are mistakes that happen when you code. And like I said, you have been seeing this error for quite some time now. And you need to understand that we have different types of error in Python. Okay, there are different types of error in Python. So different types of errors in Python. So you are going to come across these errors in your journey as a Python developer. And the first one that we have is called syntax error. And you have seen it for quite some time now, syntax errors. So this error, this happens in a code that you wrote. So they happen when you make mistakes. So this error, when you write a code that violates the rules of programming, you come up with a syntax error. Now look at the first one I did. When I said print hello world, now it's telling me that syntax error, invalid syntax. Perhaps you forgot a comma, even though that is wrong. So if you check that error, you can let me print hello world. The structure of my code is very, very wrong. So I was supposed to add a quotation because I'm printing text, but I didn't add, and it tells me syntax error, invalid syntax. It's just like when I want to tell you good morning, and I'm saying money good. You see, the structure of that greeting is wrong. There's nothing like money good. It is good money. Okay, it is good money. So the same way we also have this. Or you now came here, and instead of having print in the beginning, you now have print like this, and you run this code, it is still going to be the same error. Now, what if you change this print to capital letter? What do you have? Let's see if it's going to also be a syntax error. Now, you run this code, it is still syntax error. So you come up with syntax error when you write code that violates the rules of programming. When the structure of your code is wrong, you come up with syntax error. Now, the next error we have is called the runtime error. Runtime error. So, okay, I want to teach you how to debug runtime errors. Now, runtime errors are actually errors that don't show up when you are creating the program, but they get triggered. These errors get triggered when the program is running due to something that went wrong somewhere. Okay, so now the third error that we have is called the semantic error. All right, semantic error actually have to do with the meaning of what you wrote. That is the last kind of error we have. Semantic error. Semantic error has to do with the meaning of what you wrote. So sometimes your syntax is actually correct, all right, but the computer executes your code, all right, but when your program is ready, it is not what you want that is printed out for you. Okay, so semantic error has to do with the meaning of what you wrote. Here the code runs and give you an output, but the output is not what you want. Yes, so that is semantic error. So you run your code actually works, but the output is not what you want it to be. Now take for example, you want to print 2 plus 2. All right, when you run this code, your expectation is that the answer is supposed to be 4, right? But when the output came in, the output now became let's say 0. You see that the output becomes 0. So it is because you used the wrong arithmetic operators. Okay, so now how do you debug your code when you have an error? How do you debug an error? Okay, there are various ways for you to debug an error. So, and I want you to also listen very carefully here. For some of you that have been sending messages to the chat box, I used to ask, what are you saying? What is the error telling you? I remember somebody telling me that was the reason why he sent it to the group chat. Sometimes you need to be able to find out what is wrong with your code. Where are you facing that issue? I know I have not taught you that, but then you need to be able to actually make researches, and discover, to understand where your code or where you are feeling where you are facing difficulty. Now, when we say debugging, debugging is simply a process of finding and fixing the errors that is in your code. That is debugging. Process of finding and fixing errors in your code. All right. So let that one stick. So we have debugging. This is the process fixing errors in your code. Yes, you find and fix errors in your code. Now, most times when there's an error, when you see an error in your code, in fact, the error message that you are seeing would point to where you are supposed to look at. Okay, they will point to where you are supposed to look at. So most of the time we call errors exception in Python. We regard to errors as exception in Python, and there are various exceptions. So in Python, errors are called exceptions. So the first one that we have now is the name error. Okay, is the name error. So now when we run a code, let me show you again. When I say print hello world, you don't need to read all the error. You don't need to read every part of the error. You see that it's very descriptive. You don't need all of this. Look at where it is coming from. It said print hello, and there is a symbol here showing you where to look at. It doesn't say syntax error, invalid syntax. Now, at which line? Look at that here, line 19. I have written 19 lines here, and Python is telling me that I should look at line 19. I have a syntax error here. So syntax error means I am not writing the proper thing. Then you should not think, what do I want to do? What am I doing? Now I'm supposed to print hello world, and I'm printing hello world, but hello world is supposed to be a text, and a text also means string in Python, and a string is represented by adding them into a quotation. And I didn't do that here, so I simply had that. And when I run my code, I should see, that the hello world has been printed. So the first error that I'm mentioning here now is what we call name error. So which means you are trying to use a variable that does not exist in your current environment. So trying to use a variable that does not exist in your current environment. When I say current environment, I mean this particular file that we open. So what do I mean? Now let's say I created a first name. I created first name, and I call that first name Gideon. Now I now want to print a welcome message to Gideon. I said print using the F string, print hello. I put first name here. Okay. Then I added surname. You see that surname, I didn't create it. Hello, then welcome to quantified insights. When I run this code, I want you to read the error message that we're going to get and see the type of error we're having, if it is syntax error. Now look at that. First, we have it on line 21, and that was the last thing we wrote, line 21. Okay. Now it's telling us print F hello world. Hello first name, and it has highlighted that surname in red color. That surname has been written in red color. So what is going on with surname? Then you can now go down and check what kind of error I'm having. I'm having name error, which means name surname is not defined. If you look at our code from the beginning to where we stop, we did not create any variable called surname, and we are trying to use that variable. So we are wrong. So we need to create that variable called surname and assign a value to it, Peter. All right. We've assigned a value to it, Peter. We can now run our code and see if it is going to work. Look at that. Hello, Gideon Peter. Welcome to Quantify Insight. So now we have been able to successfully debug our code and find the error that is not making our code run, that is breaking our code, and we have been able to fix it. All right. So when you see an error, try to understand the kind of error you are seeing. What type of error am I seeing? What do I need to do, and what am I doing? Now, the next kind of error we have is what we call the type error, and call it type error. Now, what is type error? Type error actually happens when you are performing an operation on an unsupported data type. So it happens when performing operations on an unsupported data types. All right. It happens when performing operations on an unsupported data types. Now, let's just try to see example of type error and how to fix it. Now, the definition says we are performing operations on an unsupported data types. Remember, we discussed data types in our last class. Data types are integer, float, and string. So, does that mean when we say print 5 divided by 2? Look at what we have here. These data types are strings. Actually, they are not number. So when we run this code, what kind of error are we going to see? Look at that. Type error. That is the name of the error. Type error. Unsupported operand types for / string and string. You cannot divide string and string. Okay, what if I want to divide string and integer? Sorry, string and integer like this. Can I do that? The 5 here is string, the integer is 2. Can I do that? You can't still do that because 5 is a string that is indivisible. All right. So that is the type error that we're talking about. Now, if you remove this string, you remove the quotation, and you run your code, now we have 2.5, which is actually a good thing. Our code is now working well. Now, the third type of exception that we have is what we call the key error. We call it key error. Now, this key error is when you are trying to access elements of maybe a dictionary, a list, a set, using a key that does not exist. Okay, so trying to access a key in a dictionary that does not exist in the dictionary. So we've not talk about dictionary. When I get there, I'm going to talk about this key error. So let me not confuse things. The next error we're also going to talk about is what we call attribute error. Attribute error is just like the key error, okay? But this time around, it is for sorry, not the attribute error. I'm taking it for index error. So this error exists. I will show you an example of attribute error now. So this is when you are trying to access an attribute or method that does not exist. So remember when I was telling you about string operators, I said string operators are operators or methods or functions that you can only use on string. Okay. Now we also have I think we also have list operators, or list methods, list method, dictionary method. So now if you are trying to use a method that does not work with string and you are trying to use them with string, you are definitely going to come up with an error. So let's try and see. There is a method called append. Can I use surname dot append. Look at this, dot append. So let me print it. So print surname dot append. If I run this code, we should see an attribute error. Look at that, attribute error. String object has no attribute append. So we've not talked about the append because we've not talked about the concept where you need it. All right. But when you see anything like an attribute error like this, it means the data type that you are using that attribute on does not have that attribute. The data type for surname, look at it here, is string. Peter is string. And we're trying to use append on string. String does not have append. It is only list that uses append. All right. So that is that about that. Then the next one is index error. Index error, which is the last one. Index error. So the index error means you are trying to access a list using an index that does not exist in a list, string, or to when we talk about list and tuple, you are going to also understand index error. So the point here is that the point I'm trying to make is how to identify, how to debug your code when you are faced with any error. Okay, because I'm going to give you homework. The previous homework I gave you to, there are chances that you are going to come up with an error. When you see that error, first check what type of error am I saying. Is it a name error? Is it a type error? Is it a key error? You know, is it an index error, an attribute error? So when you understand the type of error you are facing, then you can now be able to debug it and also fix that error. All right. So that is going to be the end of errors and debugging. So do we have any question, please, before we move on to the next concept? Yes, key error. Yes. Oh, logical. Still the same as semantic. Yes, yes. What of logical error? The same thing as semantic. Debugging error. Okay. Okay. Let me unmute you guys so that if you have any question, you can ask. So if you have a question, you can ask your question now. All right. Muhammad Abdullahi. Mohammed Abdullahi, you can unmute and speak. Mohammed. Mohammed, unmute and speak.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. I have a question. I just come up now. My letter was actually giving me issue. Please, how many type of errors do we have now? And how am I going to know that this is the error that I made?
Yes, sir.
Mohammed, please come again.
Okay, I say how many type of error do we have, and how am I going to know that this is the type of error that I made when printing my code? Because I just joined the class now.
This note, I will send this note to you. But then we have 5 different types of error. We have the name error, we have the type error, we have key error, we have attribute error, and we have index error. Now, when you run your code, okay, let me print something for you. Let me print. I print hello world like this. All right. Now that I print this hello world and I run the code, it's going to show you the name of that error.
Okay.
Look at that. That is the type of error that I'm facing. If, on the other hand, I am trying to divide string with an integer like this, you know, I'm trying to define an integer type error, unsupported operand types for /string and integer. Now, when you understand that this is the type of error I'm facing, you now read what does name error means. Name errors means trying to use a variable that does not exist in your current environment. That is, you are trying to use a variable you have not created.
Yeah.
You are facing that issue. In fact, Python is going to tell you that the problem is coming from this particular line in your code. And also type error happens when you are trying to perform operations on unsupported data types. And that was what I just did now. Unsupported data types. I printed string. This 5 is so if I run this code, I am saying that I have a type, a type error in my code. Then the next one is key error. When you are trying to access a key that does not exist in a dictionary. I have not taught you dictionary, that's why I'm not really delve deep inside, I'm not delve deeper. When we get there, you will see what I'm talking about. We also have attribute error. Attribute error is when you are trying to access an attribute or a method that does not exist. I told you that we have string method. For example, one of the string method is hopper, lower, capitalize, strip, replace. When you try and use this hopper on an integer, you are going to have an attribute error because attribute called hopper cannot be used with an integer. We also have an index error that you will see when you use list, or you will also see what I'm talking about. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Quadri, you have a question.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good then.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, my question is when we are working on string modification.
Okay.
So when we use print, welcome message dot strip. So I try print. It's not going to modify the variable.
You did what?
Like when we just use print for the modification of strings.
Okay.
So it's going to just modify the output, like the string.
It didn't modify the. It didn't
It's not
modify
going
the
to affect the variable, rather. It's not going to affect the variable.
Yes, it is not going to affect the variable. That is what we call there are something called modification in place. All right, modification in place. So it's not going to affect the variable you created. If you want it to affect the variable, okay, you simply create a new variable. All right. So now you see what I did there. Username equals to, username 2 equals to FSTER. Then print username 2 dot replace F equals to E. Now, if you come again and print username 2, what do we have? So, where is it again? You see that it does not affect that variable. So you need to use the print function. Is that clear?
It's clear now.
Abe, you have a question, Abe?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, you said for debugging the code,
Okay.
you have to go through the lines, like you see the lines, and then if after running, if you are running a code, then peradventure you run a very long code. Is it still the same process you used to debug the code, going through every single line
Now,
and correcting it?
Now, one good practice is as you are writing your script, depending on the project you are working on, as you are writing your script, it is very important to be running your script, right? You are writing, you are running, you are writing, you are running. In fact, if you have written 200 lines of code, you write, you run. Now, when you have an error, Python is going to point to where that error is coming from. Look at what I ran here now. Okay, I am in line 31 and I have error in line 31. And Python is telling me, look at that here, file, all of that, line 31 in module. Look at it here, line 31. So if This is actually okay. Let me remove it. Okay. Now, if I run this code, line 31 is going to work. If I have an error in, let me go to line, okay, let me start from line 1 here, and I want to print a wrong thing. So print, let me use that hello world again. If I print this hello world like this, and I run this code, I will not be able to do anything. Python will not move from line 1 to line 2 because line 1 is having error. So it's going to point to line 1. Look at it here, line 1. Now, if in line 31 I have error again, so let me use what I used initially here. It's not going to jump over line 1 and come to line 31. Look at that. It's still in line 1. You see, hello 1, invalid syntax. So I need to deal with this line 1 first before I can move ahead. So what we are doing is what we call procedural programming. I forgot to tell you guys, procedural programming, which is writing your Python. I mean, you write a code, Python is going to read it line by line, line by line. So it has read line 1. Do we have any error in line 1? Yes. It's telling me, Oga, go back to line 1 and go and fix your error. Okay. Now let me fix this error in line 1. Put in the quotation. Now, if I run the code, you see that my code is still not running because I have error in line 1, line 31. I will now scroll down. I will read it. What is happening in line 30, line 33? I will, okay, it is type error. Unsupported operand types, / string and integer. And because you understand the concept of data type, you know that string is a text that is surrounded by a quotation, and integer is a number. So you scroll down to line 33. What do I do? Oh, you now realize that, oh, this 5 is a string. I am supposed to remove this string here. Now, when you remove that, you now rerun your code and it is working well. So, reading what I am saying about each line where you have, when you get to a place where you have error, Python is going to tell you this is a particular line where you have error. So, hey, have I answered the question?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
It's all right then. That's good. So, that is that about okay. Why is my why are you guys seeing my screen?
No,
Yes.
it just
Yes, we are
stopped.
seeing
It
it.
stopped
Yes,
here.
sir.
I think it stopped sharing at some point because let me share again.
But we are seeing it.
All right. So does anybody have any other question?
We can proceed, sir. Let's just proceed.
Okay. So that is that about
Yes.
errors and debugging. I just decided to quickly add this to chip this in because most of us are facing error and have not been able to teach us how to debug and how to find error and to debug that error. So anytime you face an error, you should try as much as possible to check the error code that you are facing. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is data structure or data types. Is now when you attend some other tutorial, they will tell you data type. They're actually correct to call it data type for you, but me, I always call it data structure, and it is because of the way it shows how you are arranging your data. Okay, if you check most of our code since, it has been student 1 Gideon, age 21. All right. Let me check this. Look at this welcome message equals to any welcome, all of that. Everything is individually. I write a code, I put it in a variable, I run it. I put them in a variable, I run them. Okay. Now let me create a new folder. I'm creating a few. You see the way I'm creating a new folder. Now this is inside Python basics. Inside this Python basics, look at this icon here. This is create new folder. New folder, you create that, and I call it. It's still the same basic this thing. So data structure. So now some people will call it arrays. Some people will call it, some people will call it arrays. Okay. Now, inside this data structure, I will have what we call list.py. Okay. Yes. List dot py. So some people are going to call it for you data types, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong in calling it what is it called? There's nothing wrong in calling it data types. Okay, and some people also call it arrays. So this is how you store data sets, how you collect data sets. Now look at what I have been doing since. I have been using just Gideon. So let's say I collect information about Gideon or about student name. I will have student one, let's say student one, the name equals to Gideon, and age 1 equals to 21, then gender 1 equals to male. All right. Now I want to collect another student. I will come again and say student 2 name, student 2 name. I will call her Ape. Then age 2, I will say let's say 19. Then gender 2. You see, in fact, this one is already confusing me. It's already confusing me. So let's now imagine we have 1,000 students in our class. Is this how we'll be collecting their information? Is this how we're going to be structuring this data set? That is not the appropriate way. It is not efficient. Okay. Having to say student 1, Gideon, age 1, 21, gender 1, a male, and student 2. Now, what if I want to collect 10 different data sets for each student? So, which means for 2 students now, I will have 20 lines of code. Now, if I'm doing that for 5,000 students, this is not the best approach to actually collect this data set. That is why we now have what we call arrays in Python, or data structure. So now this is a way of storing collected data. All right. So all the data types that we have learned about so far, they only contain one value. Okay. Username, one value. Age, one value. Gender, one value. So you will need to store collection of data as a single value. Now, Python has 4 types of arrays or data structure that are used for storing collection of data. Okay, so we have Python has 4 types of arrays. We also call it arrays actually for storing.
So please can you come again?
Okay. Hope you are seeing my screen.
Yes, sir. But network is very bad.
All right. I said we have data collection in Python. Everything we have been doing since, we have been storing a value inside one variable. For example, first name, we put Gideon. The surname, we put Peter. What if we want to collect for 50 students? We are going to be having all of this repeatedly, which is not the best approach. So because of that, we now have what we call arrays in Python. And it allows us to store data, multiple items in a single variable. So I said Python has 4 types of arrays for storing data collection, 4 types of arrays. And the first one we have is called list. The second one we have is called tuple. The third one we have is called set. While the fourth one is called dictionary. Okay, this is the different types of arrays that we have in Python. Now, good thing about this is that depending on the nature of the data you are collecting, you can decide to use any of these arrays. So each of these arrays has their own individual characteristics. They have their own individual differences. All right. So we are going to start today with list. We are going to start with list. So, but don't forget that we have one. We have list. And now, just like any other thing, lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. So lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. Now, so if you are selecting if you have selected to-do list as your end project, you should also take note of this. So, and like I said, lists are built-in data types in Python, and they are used to store collection of data. Just like we have sets, we have tuple, we have dictionary, and yes, and that. So now, how do we create a list in Python? How do we create a list in Python? You simply create a list by first writing your variable. So here I'm going to have what we call student names equals to, then you are going to have this square bracket here, and your value, you start storing your value inside. Sorry, I am using Gideon. Gideon has been active. In fact, one of the first students in the class. So I remember him. Then I have, I think I have Muhammad. So this is how to create, this is how I remember you in class when you show up. So, okay, Williams, yes, I remember Junior as well. So those are the names I'm going to be using. I'm not being biased. They are those ones who have been active, who I know. Okay. I have Williams. I think I have Abdullahi. All right. So you see the way I'm creating this now. I have student's name, Gideon, Abe, Muhammad, Junior, Williams, Abdullahi. So I think, okay, this 6 is okay for now. So now, if I were to be using the former approach where we have one variable, one value, you should see what we're going to have. We are going to have 6 different variables for all of this. But with just this, in a single line, we have been able to actually create a list. We have been able to add 6 different students to that list. Now, I was telling you that lists have their own characteristics. So I'm going to add that characteristics to the top here. So we have characteristics of a list. And the first is that a list are ordered. All right. Lists are ordered. Okay. Then, secondly, lists are changeable. They are changeable. Then they allow duplicates. List allows duplicates. Yes. Do we have any other one? They are ordered, they are changeable, and they allow duplicates. Now, I'm going to take time to explain all of this for you. So let me check. Another names in the class. Okay, Quadri too. So Chiamaka. So let's say we have 2 Chiamaka here. Let me add Chiamaka here. Chiamaka, yes. So that is going to explain the concept of let me cut it like this. Oh, good. So that is going to explain the concept of duplicability. Now, I said lists are ordered. That is the first characteristic of a list. Yes, they are ordered. Now, when I mean ordered, see, Gideon is the first in this list. Gideon is going to be the first. Chiamaka is the second. Chiamaka is going to be the second. Abe is the third. Abe is going to be the third. That is an order. All right. So firstborn in a house is going to always maintain that firstborn. All right. The same thing applicable in this list. Gideon is the first person on this list, is going to maintain that. So take, for example, when you come to class, Quantify Instance started taking attendance. And who first joined the class today? Gideon. Okay. Chiamaka cannot come and take the position of that Gideon because Chiamaka came second. You understand now? So that is what I meant by ordered. They are ordered. All right. Now, the second one is that they are changeable. Once you create a list, there are chances that you can create that. There are chances that you can change that list. All right. Now, how does this happen in real life? Let's say we are in our physical class, not online class, and I asked you guys to be taking attendance. And Gideon was the first person, he took attendance. Then we now put Chiamaka as the second. When Abe was the third person, when Abe now came, Abe now told us that, oh, I was the second person. I came after Gideon, but the principal called me and I went to the principal. Okay, we can simply replace or change that particular order and put Ape in the second place, then put Chiamaka in the top place. But you don't do that here. I am going to explain how to do that for you. I'm just explaining these characteristics. Now, when I say they allow duplicates, it means you can have two items. In our class, we have two people bearing Chiamaka. Look at this Chiamaka here. Look at another Chiamaka here. That is to tell you that it allows duplicates. Is that clear? Now, one thing you can check to do is that I just ask you, hey, please, how many students do we have in class today? And we have a list in Python. It is not proper for you to start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What if we have 5,000 students? Will you be counting one after the other? We have done this. We have used that particular function in the previous class. I want somebody to tell me what that function is. In 1, 2, 3, before 5. Who wants to tell me the function we use to check the total number of items?
Length.
What?
Length.
What is
The len function. We use the len function.
Len. All right. Let me see if you are correct. So you are actually correct. To know the total number of items in our value, we are going to use, in our list, we are going to use len. Look at that. We have 8. So if I ask Abe or I ask Williams, how many numbers of, what are the total number of students that we have in class? You don't need to start counting one after the other. You simply use len, and you are going to see is it. And within 1 second, you just tell me, sir, we have 8 students in our class. Okay. Now, one way to also know, we can also check the data type of our list. So we simply, I have told you this before. You are going to use type function and put in the type, the name of the variable name, and it's going to show you class list. Look at that. We have the class list. All right. Now, our list can actually take different data type. Okay. Our list can take different data type like this. List can be of any data types. Now, what I'm saying is, when I say, let me use list 1, and I can put string like this inside of a list. Then I can put 24 inside the list. I can put 64.0 inside the list. I can put true like this inside the list. So list item can be a list can contain different data types. Yes, list can contain, this is what I'm supposed to say. List can different data types. All right. So we have Williams, we have 24, which is integer, we have 64.0, which is float, we have true, which is also Boolean. Now, we can actually check and we can store different data types in a list. We can have a list that every content of that list is string. We can have a list that every content of that list is integer. We can have a list that every content is float. We can have a list where every content is Boolean. So also understand that. Now, other than using this square bracket to create a list, there is a function called list constructor used to create a list. All right. So we have using the list constructor like this. So, and there are times you are going to need them. You are going to need them. So we can have what we call them. Okay, let me say we have list new. Let me call it list new equals to, how do we create it using list constructor? We have list like this. Yes, you are going to use list like this. And because this is a function, it's going to have its own parentheses. Then we are going to add another parentheses like this to start entering our list. So what are you going to add? You can put 1, 2, 3. Let me do like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. So this is also a list. To check if we are correct, you can print the data type of list 1 to see, or list new to see what I am talking about. When you run this code, you see it is also list. So instead of using, other than using this like square bracket to create a list, you can use this list constructor to create a list. Now, some of you might want to be asking me, why do we need a list? I have used the attendance list as an example. Now, why did I use attendance list? It is because of the characteristics of list. Some of you, now we will get to set at some point, we will get to tuple at some point. You might want to ask, why is it that I cannot use tuple to create my attendance list? Now, look at what we are talking about. Look at the characteristics. I said they are ordered. Now, if you are giving me an attendance list, it must be according to order of arrival, which is ordered. Then changeable. There are chances that we make mistake when we are writing the attendance list. We should be able to change that. Then allows duplicate. There are chances also that there are 2 students or even 4 students that bear the same name in our class. So like Chiamaka here, Chiamaka there. So we need to be able to use a data structure type that accepts duplicate values. All right. Now we are done with that. Next is how to access list item. Okay. How to access list item. So we have accessing list items. Now, there's something you need to understand when you are creating a list. So I am still going to be using this list here. Where is it? This student's name. So I can copy it and put it down so that we are going to be seeing what we are doing. Now, we are still going to be using this student's name. Now, when you create a list, okay, a list will always come with a corresponding index number. Let me okay, I don't like dragging like this. I don't want to drag like this. So I will use just 6 students. Okay, let me leave it as it is. You should understand what I am trying to do. All right, okay. Now, when you create a list will always come with a corresponding index number. Just like when you are creating an attendance list in the class, a physical attendance list, who is the first on the list will have number 1. The second person will have number 2. The third person will have number 3. The same way this list in Python, we also have that. But our own is invisible. You will not always see it. But for the sake of clarity, for the sake of explanation, I'm going to add it for you. So I'm going to put hashtag there so that it's not going to come out. Now here, because Python is called zero index indexing programming language, our own list, our own index number does not start with 1. It starts from 0. Instead of having 1 the way you have it in your physical register or physical attendance list, this is going to be 1. I mean 0. So then this 1, then we have 2, then we have 3, then we have 4, then we have 5, we have 6, we have 7. All right. Now, when you create a list, any list you create at all, it comes with this corresponding index number, but you will not see it. The reason why I'm giving you now is because you're a beginner. Used to it. So even this list new here, they have their own index number. So this 1 is 0. This 3 has index 1, 4 here has index 2, 5 has index 3, and so on and so forth. All right, because Python is called what is it called? A zero index programming language. All right. So now, how do you access a list item? You can access a list item in different ways. What I mean by accessing a list item is that you don't just create a list for the creation's sake. You are creating it because you want to use them for something. So if I print student name now, if I print student names, it is going to print this list. Everything will be printed out like this: Gideon, Chiamaka, A, Muhammad, Junior, Williams, Abdullahi, Chiamaka. So what if the only person I want to call is Gideon? Okay, I am in class, I want to call Gideon. That is the only thing I want to be displayed. I want displayed. How do I do that? I will use the index number to do that. And it is simply printing student name. Let me clear this. So you print, okay, like this: student name, Then you use square brackets. Then you add the index number 0. So if I run this thing, it's not going to show because I did not print. So I will need to wrap it inside print so that you see. It's not going to be print student's name 0. That is the index number, like this. When I run this code, the only thing that will be displayed for us will be Gideon. Look at that. Gideon has been printed. If I want Chiamaka or if I want Ape, it's still the same approach. Print student name, then index 2. Index 2 is going to print Ape. So this is how to access using index number. Okay? Accessing using index number. So I'm going to call it using index number. Now, or using indexing, or using the index. Now, this is called positive indexing. Okay? Because we have just 8 people on our list, it is very, very easy for us to say, oh, the second Chiamaka is index 7. Now, what if we have 5,000 students and you don't know the last person? How will you be able to extract that name? We now use what we call negative indexing. Okay? Now, negative indexing means you are starting from the end. Means starting from the end of the list. How do I do that? So now I want to print Chiamaka. I will just simply say print student's name, then square bracket -1. So if I run this code, this Chiamaka will be printed. If I run this code, you see that Chiamaka is printed. So sometimes, so that I will not confuse you, we have Chiamaka here, we have Chiamaka here. So let me remove this Chiamaka here and put Abdullah there. All right. So my expectation now is not that I believe he's not supposed to print Chiamaka, he's supposed to print Abdullah. Let me run that code. Look at that. That is Abdullah. All right. That is how to actually index using negative indexes. So if I want to extract Williams using negative indexing, it is going to be print student names square bracket -3. Let me check. Williams, yes, -3. So when I run this code, I should have Williams at the end. That is how to index using negative indexing. The first one we use positive indexing, 0 to, if I want to extract Chiamaka, it is 1. Mama, it is 3. Junior, it is 4. But if I'm using negative indexing, it starts from the end, but it's not going to be -1. So the next one we have is what we call range of indexes. Range of indexes. Okay, range of indexes. Now, for range of indexes, sorry. Okay, sorry. Range of indexes is also known as slicing. Okay, also known as slicing, like this. You slice, like you are slicing something, slicing bread. Okay, so when, let's say we have 8 students in our class, right? And I need just the first 2 students because they were the first people that came to class today, and I want to give them bonus very early to class. How do I do that? I use range of indexes. For example, you can call it anything you like. So I call it first 2 students. First 2 equals to student names. Then we are still going to use that square bracket. Now, range of indexes will now be, we're going to use the column. So 0 colon like this, 2. Now, you might want to ask, but we are removing 0, which is Gideon, and Chiamaka, which is 1. Why did I add 2? It is because when you use slicing, when you use range of indexes, it is going to extract from this, from the first index to the last index, but it's not going to include the last index. That is, it's going to remove from Gideon to Ape, but it's not going to include Ape, which means if I use 0 to 1, is going to extract from Gideon to Chiamaka, or it's not going to include Chiamaka. Let me run that. So I will now print first two for me to see if I am correct. Let me run the code. Now we can see that we have Gideon and Chiamaka in a list. All right, look at that. Gideon and Chiamaka in a list. So if I want to extract Abe and Muhammad, I will need to use 2 to 4, which means it's going to extract from Abe to Junior, but it's not going to add Junior. And that way, you know, and so on and so forth. All right. So that is how to extract using range of indexes. So let me try one more. Abe and Muhammad. So okay, instead of using, okay, let me new, I'll call them second listener equals to still the same approach, student names, then is now going to be from 3 to 5. Right? Yes, no, I'm extracting Abe and Mohammed. Sorry, I want to remove Abe and Mohammed. So Abe is 2, Mohammed to 4. So it's going to be Abe, which is 2. Okay, if I leave to 5 now, I know I am going to extract more than I have extracted more than what I wanted. So let me run the code so that you see. Now, Abe, Mohammed, and Junior. So which means it's supposed to be 4. Now we have our 2 students. So that is how to extract using a range of indexes. So now, one thing you need to understand about range of indexes is that if you are extracting from the beginning like this, you don't necessarily need to put 0. So let's say I want to extract from Gideon to Muhammad, first 4. Okay, so I will say first 4 equals to student name. Then I put 0 to, is it Muhammad? Yes, Muhammad is 3. So I will not put 3, I will put 4. If I want to add Muhammad, I will put 4. So it's going to be to 4. Now, if I run this code, print first 4. If I run this code like this, now I have Gideon, Chiamaka, Abe, and Mohammed. So because I am starting from the beginning, I do not need to actually add this 0. Python understand that we are starting from the beginning. Now, when I run the code, are we still going to have the same output? Let's check it out. Now, you can see that we have Gideon, Chiamaka, Abe, and Muhammad. So we still have the same results. Now, if you also want to extract from a particular point to the end, from a particular point to the end, you don't need to put the end. So let's say we are moving from Williams, Chiamaka, and Abdullahi. So we'll call it last 3. So it's going to be last 3 equals to student's name. Then what is Williams distance? Williams is 5. So we put 5. Then if you put 7, because you are saying 7, if you put 7, it is not going to work. I mean, you know, Abdullah will not be added. So let me run the code so that you see what I'm talking about. So print, remember the idea of the thing I just explained. So last 3, Abdullah is not added. It's just Williams and Chiamaka. So you need to add 8. All right. I know that 8 is not here. It's hidden, but then you need to just add it. That is how slicing works. Now we have Williams, Chiamaka, and Abdullah. Now, because we are extracting from 5 to the end, we can just remove this 8. And it's going to extract that. You see that it is still the same thing. If you want to actually slice everything out, you can put just this particular column, and it's going to extract everything that you need. List item. How to access list item. So I want to make sure I am not overloading you with so much things this evening. We still have so many things to talk about list, how to change list item, how to, you know, add to list item, and all of that. Let me just ask, are you guys following?
Yes.
Yes, we are
Yes, sir.
following.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
We are following.
Hope I am not overloading anybody. Hope I am not overloading you.
No.
No, we are not.
Okay. Yes. All right. All right. All right. All right. Thank you. So let me continue with let me continue with what we have. So that is how to access your list. Okay. What we did was access this our list using our index number, and we did using positive index, and we also did it using negative index. Then the last one we did was to use range of indexes, like you are slicing something from this point to this point. Okay, from the first person to the third person. All right, from the last person, from this third to the last to the end. So that is what we did. Now, the next thing about list is how to change list item. Okay, changing list item. All right, I have a question there. Well, Python is for the weak. Abdullah. Python is not that strong. It's just the approach. Don't worry. Just try and practice. All right. Just try and practice. Sometimes some of these things you are not going to really need all of them. Okay. What are you working on? If you are working in a particular project, what are those things you will need for that project? That is what you should focus on. So that is just that. Now, how do you change? Okay, let me call it. I call it. I think. Okay, how to change list items. All right, I told you that your list is changeable. You have created this list called student names. How do you change that list? Then it's very, 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 very simple. Okay. Now, let's say we want to change. Okay, let me copy this so that I will not be scrolling back up and down again. Like, all right, let me copy so that I'll be using it. Now, we want to change Abdullahi. All right. So let's say I didn't add I. Yes, to the end. Okay, I have Abdullah in class 7. All right. Let's say I needed to add the I. How do I change that? I can simply change that using the index number like this. So student names. And what is the index number? I can either use 7 or I use -1. All right. Then equals to, I will not say Abdullah. Now, if I print student name, you see, this is Abdullah here actually. No, okay, let me just do like this. Yes, Abdul. So I want to change it to Abdullah. If I run this code, I should be able to see Abdullah at the end. Look at that. Abdullah has been changed for me. Abdullah has been changed for me. Okay, that is how to change using index number, either positive or negative index number. You can also change range of indexes. You can also change range of indexes. So we have student's name. Okay. Now we want to change from 0 to 2, like this. So let's say Gideon. I didn't spell Gideon well. Then Chiamaka, I didn't spell that well. Now, how do I do that? I will simply create another list again. I call it Gideon, like this. Then comma and Chiamaka. Like this. Now, if I print student name, what do I have? Look at that. Gideon, Chiamaka, Abe, Muhammad, Junior, Williams, Chiamaka, Abdullah. Look at the first one, Guide, Chiamak. All right. So now I have been able to look at how slicing works. Okay. I'm not adding Abe 2. So it's going to from here to here, but does not include 2. So that was what that one just did. So now, one other way to also change Oh, sorry. Somebody said, is it Light? Light says she's lost. So sorry about that. So one way to also change lists, okay, is to insert. We can change using the insert function, okay, using the insert function. How do you do using the insert function? So let me just leave as it is. Now, let's say Light, I think I just saw their name now. Light just came and said, I am on the list. Why didn't you add me to the list of those people that came to class today? I just I logged in, but I logged back out because my network was bad. I am the second person after Gideon. How are we going to do it now? We simply use the insert function to help us add, what is her name? To add Light. So remember when I was telling you, I said that we have string method. We also have list method. So now I'm going to try that list method. The first one is insert. So we have student names. Now, when I type dots, we will see the various method that we have. I'll use the insert. Now, this insert is going to take two parameters: the index number that you want to insert into and the value you want to put there. So I want to replace Chiamaka with Light. So 1, comma, I will now type Light. When I print this code, when I print student name, you will see that Light Chiamaka here that we have, Chiamaka will have been replaced by Light. But Chiamaka is going nowhere. Chiamaka will be shifted to the right. It's going to take the position of Ape. Yes, it's going to take the position of Ape and to the right like that. So let me run this code and you see. Look at that. Look at my terminal. We now have Light has been started there. Chiamaka is there. Ape is there. None of our list item has been removed. Just that we place at a particular index point. So that is how lists actually work. All right. So I am going to actually pause here to the next class so that we can talk about list method and how to loop through, and also the concept of looping. All right. I'm going to stop here and talk about the concept of looping. For those of you who have not gotten your assignments in your, I'm going to send them to you, and I'm going to give you a new approach to submitting assignments. Okay, I said there will be certificate after this class, but then you need to do the work. You can't just come and collect certificate like that. Nothing is free. So you need to attend class, watch these videos, and I want to know that you are doing what is right, so that I'll be able to know that you get a job and they say who trained you, you say it's quantified inside. It will be defendable. Do we have any question for this evening?